Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's xLights Gems presentation on Introduction to Timing Tracks by Mark Butcher. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Mark. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Andy, and thanks everybody for attending. Yeah, we're going to talk about timing tracks, and we're going to touch just a little bit, as you can see here, on music theory, and just enough to ex for you to be able to get or develop better timing tracks. So we're not going to get very intensive into that portion at all. But I think what we're going to try and cover tonight, uh, sure, the basics. What is a timing track? We'll go over the types. Yeah, and like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about music theory and how that can help you with your timing tracks. We'll go over the basic timing tracks, how to create them. We'll get into some custom timing tracks. And then, if we're going to spend all this time creating and making timing tracks, we should probably cover how we're going to use them. So we'll go through that. I'll go through some tips and tricks, that I use and I think you'll find helpful. And then we'll wrap up with questions. So, so what is a timing track and why do I want one? Um, Essentially, it's a tool to divide the song or the sequence. It doesn't even have to be a song, right? We can use timing tracks in just animation sequences, but it's a way to divide the song or your sequence into sections to help you work on it. And these sections, they can be whatever you want or need them to be. So you can define them. There's some common ones we use, but it's really limited by what your imagination and how you envision using them. So, and that'll become more clear as when we start creating some of the ones. Um, it helps with organization when you're sequencing. It also will help you with sequencing. It'll help you be a more efficient sequencer. Um, and then when we start to get really down to it, effects and states can reference the timing tracks and use them to create some automatic sort of effects that go on. Um, and I'll say I think timing tracks are like the foundation of the sequence, right? So like if you build a house, you got to have a good framing plan to hold up the house, and you have all the. So I think that's sort of what the timing tracks are, and then the walls and the paint and the curtains and the carpentry, all the finished stuff. That's all the effects. So if you start with a good foundation, you'll end up with a good sequence. And we'll go quick over the types of timing tracks, and then I call them organization. That's one type, and this will become more clear. We'll be jump into xLights. Fixed timing tracks. These are a fixed duration. There's automatic ones. These are ones xLights with a plugin that's you should have installed. Will automatically generate some timing tracks for you. We can create our custom ones. We can import timing tracks, just like we can import effects. We can import timing tracks. And then there's lyric timing tracks. And that's the only one we're not going to cover tonight. We got a class coming up, and I think, Andy, if I'm correct, I think David's doing that next week now on lyric
Next week, yeah,
tracks.
there'll be lyric tracks
Yep.
and singing faces next week. Yes.
So, all right. So I'm gonna save that for him. That's David will get you all caught up on lyric tracks. So that one we are not going to cover tonight. Um, all right. So before we jump into timing tracks, like I said, just a little bit of music theory. So the way music's written and organized so musicians can read it and comprehend it, it's divided up into what we call bars or measures. Those are they mean the same thing. So you can see there's these vertical lines and those are called bars. And so this is one bar, this is one bar, this is one bar. And a bar, all bars are the same length of time. It could have different amount of notes in it, but the duration of time is uh is the same. So you don't need to worry about the actual notes themselves. That's not pertinent to what we're going to talk about. But just think of a bar as it's just a way of organizing music, and the bars are the same length of duration or time. So every song has a time signature, um, and when it's written in the sheet music, it's written right here. So it's got two numbers, the top number and the bottom number. So the top number tells how many beats are in each bar. In this case, four. And the bottom number is what type of beats they are. Since this is a four, this means it's a quarter note gets one beat. And so this is called 4/4 timing. And this is the most common time signature in all of music. Virtually all pop music is 4/4. Like 99% of all pop music is written in 4/4. Um, most most music is written in 4/4. There's a couple other time signatures, and we'll talk about those. But so, like we said, we got four beats in a measure, and a quarter note gets one beat. So this could be one bar where it has four quarter notes. This is the same thing. This is one bar. It's got two half notes. A half note is twice as long as a quarter note. This one's one whole note, but it takes up four beats, but it's held for longer. And then this is a mixture of quarter and eighths, but the same thing. There's still four beats. There's one beat, two beats, three beats, and four beats. And the beats are, if you're listening to a music and you start tapping your foot or clapping your hands, usually you are clapping on the beat. So the, the two other time signatures we'll run into for uh, especially in Christmas music, there's a fair amount of music, Christmas music, that's in 3/4 timing. And what that means is, if you think about our top number, that's got three beats per bar, and the quarter note gets one beat. And so this is traditionally like a waltz style of music. So it's going to have a waltz feel to it. It's going to go like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and it's going to have a little more emphasis on beat one. The other one that's somewhat common for Christmas music is not as common as 3/4, but is a 6/8, and that's got six beats per bar. But in this case, you see the bottom number is an eight here, so that means it gets the eighth note gets one beat. And this has a little more of a swing feel to it. And the difference between these two look very similar. The big difference is this has two major emphasis beats per bar, and it's got this like little triplicate, these notes in the middle. Um, but really, the two you need to worry about the most, I would say, would be 4/4 and 3/4. And now we're going to jump into xLights. So just let me move this out of the way. All right, so we're going to start with fixed timing tracks. And let's just say we don't even have a fixed timing tracks. Let me back up. We can create a timing track by right-clicking up here. We add timing track. There's a whole list of ones. So these fixed ones are these first few here, right? This is a 25 millisecond timing. This is a 50 millisecond timing. This is a 100 millisecond timing. This is a metronome and metronome with tags. So let's just start with metronome. And I hit OK. And then just this tells me what metronome timing do I want in milliseconds. So 1,000 milliseconds equals 1 second. So let's just say, we'll just type in 2,000 here to give you an example. So what this did, so it created a timing mark basically every 2 seconds. Then we can make whatever ones we want. And so this is often good if you're doing just a static display and you want something to help line up effects or things. You can create static these static timing effects. I'm just going to get rid of this one. Let me get rid of you. All right, we're going to add another one. So this is metronome with tags. And the only real difference is same thing. We'll keep it big enough so you can see it. But there's a tag count, and you can make this. If we use 4, it's going to label them 1, 2, 3, 4, and then start back over at 1, 2, 3, 4. Probably have to zoom in just a little bit. Yep. So you can see they're actually labeled. And what this does is this states and certain other effects can reference these tags, and you can control the effect on using these tags. And we are going to get into that as we go farther. But for now, just remember, that's one way. If you're just doing a static display with no music and you want to be able to use that, you can do that. The other one, we'll just go back to this metronome with tags. And let's just we'll make this one 1,000 seconds, right? And we can do random tags. And so this is just going to It's going to use the same 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's going to mix up the order, which may, depending on if you're referencing these, will could give you some sort of unique display. So let's clear those. So that those are these top ones are the fixed timing tricks. We're actually not going to talk about these FPP commands and FPP effects because mainly because I'm not that strong in that, and I maybe be something else we can cover in another class. But you can use these to reference some to do some stuff in FPP within your sequence. Um, but so the next thing I want to talk about is what I call organizational timing tracks. And so this is when I sequence, how I start everything out. I will come in here and I'll take the, the timing track that starts up there initially, and I will just call this sections. And then I'll come in here, and if I want to create my own timing track, if I select this active and I just click anywhere and hit the letter T at the keyboard, it's going to drop it's going to drop a mark for me. And we're not going to listen to the song, but what I would do is I'd listen and let's just say this is like the intro of the song. And I'd find out where the intro ends and I'd drop something there. And then I would come to the next section and here's maybe the first verse. And I'd do one there and then a chorus. And then maybe there's another verse, another chorus, and so on and so forth. And then you can label these depending on your xLights settings. For me, it's a shift double click. And I'll just call this, if I spell right, I will label this as intro. And then I would label this as, say, verse one. And then let's just say this is chorus one. But this just helps when you're sequencing of staying organized and seeing how the song is laid out. And it's just certainly not required. It's something I do that I like. Uh, the, Another track that I will do is I will add a timing track and I will call it notes. So let's say I'm sequencing and I listen to a certain part of a song and I'm like, I have an idea I want to do there. I'll just drop. uh, You got to make sure I don't have that one active. I just come in here, drop a little section, and same here. I just type myself, try some effect or whatever. I'll leave myself a note if I'm thinking of something. So I'm not getting distracted by what I do, but I don't forget about something I want. Um, so these two are things what I call, at least I refer to them as organizational timing tracks. They're not tied to they're not tied to anything. Other than to help keep me organized and my thoughts straight. So we can delete him for now. We're not to keep this clean. So now we're going to go into some of the automatic timing tracks, which are same thing. I'm going to right click and add timing track. And the first one that I usually always add is bars and beat tracker. And I'll add the bars. So if you remember back from our music theory, this is where it can become in handy, right? Beats per bar. So if your sound is in 4/4, you want to make sure this is set to 4 beats per bar. If it's in 3/4, you want to have this set to 3. If it's in 6/8, then you'd want to have it set to 8. So you want this number here set to whatever the bottom number of that time signature is. And you can cheat on a lot of songs if you just Google and say if you got the song and you find the sheet music, you can look at it and you'll see what that time signature is. So this song that we're doing here is this is a Deck the Halls, and it's actually in 4/4. So we're just going to leave it alone. And so what it does is it goes through, it analyzes the audio, and right, it drops in a bar. So every 4 beats. The next timing track I always add, is the beats. And I'll go bars and beat tracker beats and hit OK. And now you really shouldn't have to the this will stay what you had it set for the previous time. But again, we're in 4/4, so we want 4 beats per bar. And if we zoom in a little tighter, now you can see there's our bar 38. It's got 4 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that continues along the entire sequence. So what I will do now, I will add a second beats timing track. Um, because what happens is, you've got stuff that happens faster than on the beats, right? We've got faster music. So then I will come in here and let me see, I will right click. I select all the timing marks. Then I will right click and I will divide the timings into two. And so essentially this gives me right, if we're in 4/4, right, we got our 4 beats. So this is essentially our quarter notes. This gives me my eighth notes. So if I want to get tighter sequencing, it's just mostly useful if you're trying to sequence to like a drum part or something like that. Um, and so these are the automatic ones that I typically use. Like I said, you'll get down to, you could further divide down to 16th notes if you want to. That's usually not necessary and can be a little bit of overkill. Um, so that talks about some of the automatic ones. There's a few other ones on here. We're going to get to a couple of the other automatic ones when we get down to the advanced section. Um, the next type of timing track that I like to say we can rate is manual, and that's exactly what it sounds like, right? You listen to the music, and let's just say a timing track. We'll just let's just say we're going to do some drums, okay? And actually, this brings me to we're gonna skip back to one little thing. Before I come back to here. One tool I like to use when I'm doing my custom timing tracks. Uh, I use a program called Moises, which allows you to. It's an AI stem splitter, so it splits the tracks. There's a paid version. The free one, you think you get like 4 or 5 songs per month. And there's other ones that don't cost anything. But essentially, what you do is you drag the sound over to here, and you can pick out like what tracks you want out of it. You know, and then you hit submit, and away it goes, and it splits it out. It takes a little while to do that, so I'm just going to go back to here's one that I've already split out for deck to halls, right? So it split out the drums, the bass, the piano, strings, wind, and then everything else is in other. I think with the free one, I think you can pick up to 4 things to separate, which is usually more than enough. The paid one is I think $3 a month. It's not crazy, but it gives you a little bit more, gives you more songs and few more tracks. And but then you can now export these as individual tracks. And so this can come in handy for sequencing, right? If I want to do the drums, right? I'm going to go to File, Sequence Settings, and I come here and I'm going to go into Deck to Halls. And so here's one where the drums have just been split out. So if we were to listen to this, hopefully it's not, let me know if it's too loud or if it needs to be louder. Is that good, or should we go a little louder, Andy?
Did you share sound?
I
A little
did.
bit louder. A little bit louder. Yeah, did you share? Yeah, I don't hear anything. There they
Sounds
are.
good.
Do you hear now?
Yeah, and just a light thump.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's not too loud here. Okay. So this is just isolated out the drum parts. So now if I wanted to say just create a timing track to go just on these big thumps, right? I come in here and I can, hit, make sure my drums is activated. I've got the radio bar clicked. I'm just going to hit T, right? I can come here, hit T, and I could do, we're going to go quick here. You could, ideally you should listen and do a little bit finer analysis, but now, right now right? And then I could listen and say, this started a little too early and drag it a little way to the other if you really want to take your time, um, which you should do. But that gives you an idea of, that's what I like to call a custom track or a manual track. You're doing it from, by manually creating it. And it can be, you can do it for drums. You could do it for some other guitar part. You hear a guitar solo, anything, whatever you think you want to sequence the lights to that's going to help you line up effects, um, you can do. Mhm. So let's see. Next on my list is, all right. So now I have multiple views. So I have a master, I have the master view, which is what controls the sequencing. But then I have other views that I use just for sequencing. Now, if you look in here, my master view has all the timing tracks we've created so far. Um, the matrix view has all the timing tracks we created so far because that's the view I was in when I created them. But any of these other ones, right, other than that one default one that came with xLights that renamed, doesn't have any timing tracks. So you used to have to edit display elements and select them in there, but now you can just right click on here and you can select add timing tracks to all views. And now if I come over to my snowflakes, I've got all my timing tracks. Um, you know, candy canes and mini trees, right? So now they're in every single view. So but if you add another timing track, you have to re-click that. But it's much more efficient now to be able to add them to all the different views. All right, so I think we've covered enough about at least the basic timing tracks and how to create them. Let's see if there are any questions in chat that we need to answer right now. If not, we'll go on to how to use them because that's really what we want to learn how to do, right? That's what we want to know. Anything, chat,
Nope,
Andy?
nope, no questions. Keep going.
All right, so um, I'm going to switch. So now I'm just going to go back to my sequence settings and change it back to the original song. And this is going to be louder, so I'm going to turn it down to quiet. If it's too loud when we play it, let me know. But here's how some of the ways we would use a timing track. Okay. Um, let's see the best way to do this without blasting everybody's ears out. All right, let's just actually we're gonna go to arches. That'll be a perfect. All right, so I'm gonna activate my beats timing track. We'll just zoom in here a little bit. And I'm gonna put the single strand on the arches. And let me zoom out a little bit more. And we're gonna we'll cover one, two, three. We're gonna cover 4 bars with it. And I'm just gonna change the render style to per model default. All right, so we have now, right, we've got 4 bars, but we got 16 beats. So if I want this to cycle every time to a beat, we're going to change our cycles to 16. And now, as you can see in the preview, we are getting a bounce to every beat. And now maybe you want to use a single strand effect on another prop and have it line up. If we have these timing marks, it's going to, you're just going to be able to line up and everything's going to be in sequence. So that's where it comes out um, handy is just that you could figure out how many beats, or if I wanted to say bounce from left, well, now it's going twice as fast. So a lot of times if you want to bounce to the beat back and forth, in this case, you'd want to put your cycles back to 8. And if we just listen to this, let's see if it matches. Actually, on Zoom, it's going to be a little delayed, but we'll try. But so hopefully you get the idea on that. Um, so we're going to delete. We'll keep you in there. So now we're dealing bars 14, 15, 16, and 17. So let's just go to our candy canes, right? And now let's just say we wanted to have these fade every beat, right? So I copy. So this is another place where having this can help, right? I want you to pay attention up here. There's two ways we can paste effects. We can paste by time, and that'll match the time of the effect, or we can paste by cell. And what paste by cell does is if I copy this, and actually let's just shorten it up just a little bit. This will make more sense, right? So if I copy this and I paste it here, and I paste by cell, it's going to take up the same amount of space within these two cells, right? So if these were different, we'll cover that in that case where it makes different. And then you can actually start to copy. I can copy 2, right? So now I got 4, and now I can copy these 4 and get 8. And all I'm doing is Control C here and pasting in Control V. But because I'm pasting my cell, these are all going to line up, and you see they're going to start matching with the arch jumping back and forth. So that's where these can really help, get your effects all lined up. So that's paste by cell. Now we're going to cover, let's just say, we're going to fake a drum part in here. So let's just say there's some crazy drums, and they're all different lengths of beats and whatnot. All right. So same thing. We're going to say we want this. Let's just say we're using the same little effect here for our drum. And I'm going to turn the audio since it won't match up. It's not going to matter. All right. So if I was to copy this now, and if I paste it here, because I've got paste by cell on, and this one took up the full cell, this one is going to take up the full cell. All right, so it doesn't matter on the size, it's basically based on the ratio. So if I were, let's just back this off just a little bit, right? And it's gonna back it off this line by the same percentage. So it's relative, the paste is relative to the size of the cell, which when you're pasting maybe drum beats and different hits is what you want. Um, so you get something going like that. But the other one is maybe you don't want that. You want all these to be the same size. So in that case, you do a copy and just want to make sure you're paced by time. You want it to start here, but you want it to end at the same time. That's when you would use a pace by time. And as I just go through here, it's going to start here and it's going to keep the same time as we go. If it runs long, it would actually run over. You'd have to fix that manually. But in that case, I got lucky. All right, so there's pace by time, pace by cell, and it's just a matter if you want all the effects to be the same duration, or you want them to be fill the same amount of time and be relative to one another. Um, so in a lot of music, it's created by humans. So yeah, we divide it up into beats, and you would think the beats are going to be perfectly even, but you're going to see, that if you were to try to paste effects, if from one measure one bar to another, it can vary by a few milliseconds because humans are imperfect, and so the music's going to have some minor small variations. So it's really I find myself mostly operating in this paste by cell mode. All right, so we copied, cut a paste, pasting by cell. All right, so now let's get into some states. And actually, before we get into states, I want to do one more thing. So we made this beats two track earlier, which was our beats track subdivided, which was our eighth notes, right? Well, if you look, it's got a one, a blank, a two, a blank, a three, a blank, a four, a blank, right? So that's not necessarily very helpful. But if I was to, I'm going to right click right here on the name. I'm going to select my timing marks. And if I right click on the timing marks, there's this auto label timings. So now what I can do is I can say, okay, I want to start my label at one. Now in this case, since they're eighth notes, I'm going to say I want them to go over to eight. I want to overwrite my existing labels. All right, so let's just zoom in. Now we can see what we got, right? So I got my bar, got my quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've got my eighth notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's one way to do it. The better way, since most states are set up to work with 1 through 4, we're going to select these timing tracks again. I'm going to rename, and I'm going to auto label them again. This time I'm just going to go to 4. So now you can see we got two sets of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Um, so let's zoom in a little bit here. And let's say if I'm going to turn on actually, we'll do beats 2. I think it'll give us a little more. And I'm going to drop a state effect onto these mini trees. I just need to change the render style so it'll work right to per model default. All right, and now over here I'm going to pick my state, and let's see. Let's go with bunny hop. And let's see if we zoom in on this bunny here. All right, and actually so if you see here, there's states. There's state 1, and that's already built into the prop. So there's state 2, the legs come up some. There's state 3, the legs come up some more. There's state 4, and they start to come back down. Okay. But we have this option to use a timing track. So if we select this and I say beats 2, now the rabbit, he's going to hop, you know, and move based on these beats. In this case, he's using our beats 2. If I change this to beats, just a regular beat, you're going to see he's going to move a whole lot slower because the beats are less often. So that's using states with so states are a common thing where you can reference a timing track. And there's, like I said, there's tons of not necessarily all the states have, if like here, if you see 1, 2, 3, 4, then you want to have 4. You want to make sure your timing track uses 1 through 4. And I think virtually all of them, that's how they're set up. Now we're going to let's go to the matrix view, and we'll cover a couple more effects. It's just to be easy to show on the matrix on how it works. So we'll do that. But this could certainly apply to individual props. It's just this is going to be easier for everybody to see here. So I'm just going to put on effect. Cover 4 bars worth of here. All right. In white. And so one of the effects that has uh, the VU meter has a number of built-in effects that will reference the timing tracks. Let me slide this over a little bit. Um, and they are pretty much anything that starts with the word timing is going to reference a timing track. So if we go to timing event bar, okay, now you see right here so the number of bars, it's what it divides the prop or the group into. So in this case, it's going to divide this matrix up into 6 bars, and these bars are not associated with the music, so don't think of that way. Just think of it's 6 units or 6 subdivisions of a prop. So if I was to take and I was to use the bars timing track, actually that's not, let's use the beats. So every time it hits a beat, it's going to slide across the matrix. And because I have 2 colors picked here, that's why. If I only have 1 color, it's just going to move across. I just got the white as the background so you can see it. But it's moving every beat. It's going 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, this one we can audio. We can go back to the audio. No, right? You see it? All right. So the same thing. If I was to switch to beats 2, you're going to see it basically move twice as fast. Well, let's just go back to regular beats. Bounce does the same thing, except it's gonna, instead of just going left or right, it hits that, bounces back. But bars is a little unique. This one you actually have to have 2 colors. So this is going to light up everything, but it's just going to, since I have 2 colors, it's going to split it evenly. If I add a 3rd color, and let's even add a 4th color, then you can see they're actually going to sort of move. In this case, left to right, and they're moving on the beat, the colors. So and these you'll have to experience, like the spike slides across, but it just, like I said, there's the VU meter effect it's massive. There's a ton of different things, but anything with these timings can reference a timing track. And so it's a way to get sequencing done to to the song and feel like it's movement without a whole lot of effort. It's a couple other. Actually, you know what? I forgot the one thing I wanted to show before we went back here. Let's go back to just the bar here. All right, so we got our bar moving across, and I'm going to put it on beats too, so it happens faster. All right. So there's this next level down here that's called filter label. And what this can do is it can allow us, so right now, because it's blank, it's doing this thing on every count. So it's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? If I change this and I found it works best with using a regex box, which is it's a, and if you use a 1 and then use the pipe function, which is above the forward slash, the vertical line, and say I use 1 and 3. Now it's only going to do this bars effect when it sees a 1 or a 3. So if I add, let's just say, and so now you can further define when you want it to do its action, right? Or I could do, if I did 1 and 4, you're going to see it'll start 1, and because 4 and 1 line up, those 2 quick, and there's a gap. But there's a lot of different methods or combinations you can do this to create some unique looks in your sequencing. But that is wanted to cover that, and now we can go on to the next thing. A couple other effects that use it is the shape effect. All right, so let's say I got a circle. I'm just gonna make it one circle. Just do a couple quick settings here. All right. Same thing right down here. It's got a timing track. I can tell it to fire with the timing track, and I can tell it to fire on the beat. So now I'm gonna get one every beat, or now you're gonna get twice as many. If I add a second color, it's gonna change. But you can get a very a good pulsing effect if you're using the circle, or you can pick any shape you want. The same as, and we can do the same thing with the filter labels. So that's another couple of ways we can do that. We've talked, we've already talked about how to relabel a timing track when we need to. And so now this is let me skip back to where we did this custom drum section. So let's just say, let me just add a couple more to it just to explain what we're doing. So let's just say, yeah, let's say I've come through and I've listened. I got this highly detailed drum section that's over these 3 bars. All right. And let's say, later on in the song, it repeats that same drum break. And but I don't want to go through the effort of manually creating it again. So one way you could do it, and let's just say it starts at, right now we're starting at bar 18. Let's just say it starts at bar 24, the next one for our case. One case you could do is if you have to deselect it, is I can come in here and I could select these bars and I could hit Control C, and then I can come down to close to where I think this is going to be and hit Control V. Oh, it yelled at me because I had paste by cell on. You can't do paste by cell with the timing tracks. So I'll come back down here and try to line myself up and hit it, and but you can see obviously I missed a little bit, right? So then I can select them again. I'll use my arrow keys and move and line up. All right. And this works somewhat, but if you remember before, we talked about sometimes the bars and the measures, right? It's a little bit imperfect. You'll see stuff doesn't line up perfectly how it did in your other sequence. So the little workaround I found for that is I will just come down here and I'll call it, I'll call it like a little, call it a helper effect. I want to make sure I'm in paste by cell. I will just temporarily, I'll highlight all these, right? My little drum break, and I will just do anything. I get an on effect. So now I've got an on effect that fills, each one of these. Okay. Now I'm going to turn off the drums, and I'm just going to go to my beats. And then I'm going to select all these, but I want to make sure my beats is the only one active. And I can do right click, copy, or Control C. And then I'm going to come down here and we said it starts at 24, and I'm going to paste. All right, so now and because it's paste and it's using the beats, it's going to paste everything relative. And so if there is some slight variations in the length of the bars or the beats, it's going to match up, and it's going to look much better. But now, well, how do I get my drums timing track? Because maybe I want to, I want something that's going to reference and spike to those the timing track. Well, we can simply select these effects. Now I want to make sure my drums is active, and I can right click and I can come down here. We're going to select create timing. And now I've recreated, essentially duplicated it identically. And now, you know, we can then go ahead and, get rid of our little helper effects that we used to create them. But now these are going to be very consistent between the two and relative to the lengths. And that's my best tip I think I've got for creating the custom ones. Is the best method I found. Maybe somebody knows something different. And then last but not least, we're going to switch to a new sequence and go to open sequence. Where'd I hide you? I lied. All right, we'll just do this. We're going to do a new sequence. So this is Silent Night. Now, Silent Night is in 3/4 time. And if we listen to it, so the way we'd create the bass timing tracks for this one, right, we're going to add one, and we're going to do our bars, except now we want to set this to 3. And you can do the slider and try and get it, or the arrow keys get you right there. So we want to have 3 beats per bar because this is in 3/4 timing. And then we're just going to add another timing track and go to our beats. Since the last time we were in this one, we left it 3, it's going to stay at 3. And so you can see the only real difference is now we've got our bar, but we only got 3 beats per bar. And we can tell we got this right because if you look at the waveform here, right, it's lining up, right? These bars are lining up with major sounds. So you can, yeah, if you've ever tried to sequence it, if you're like your bars just seem off a little bit. Like if we'll add one, we'll add another bars once to demonstrate this. Call this bars 4. We're going to set this back to 4. And just to make it a little clearer, I'm just going to delete the beats one for now. All right. All right. So you can see how the 4/4 bars, these green ones, they're not lining up right with the music, and it makes it harder to sequence. I mean, the beats are still going to be correct, right? Because you're still going to have the beats all lining up, but you can see these only sync up every so often. So this could be one clue that you've got the time, the number of beats per bar on when these major emphasis aren't lining up, or you're hitting a different part of the song and it's hitting the middle of a bar or something just doesn't, it looks off. This is a good tip to tell that you've probably got that incorrect. So that's what I wanted to show you there. And let's see if there was anything. Oh, yes, there was one more thing. Let's see. Let's go to, actually, we're going to switch the sound on this one. So we're going to file sequence settings, Silent Night. Let's pick just a drums track. we'll delete the wrong. Okay. So this is a we're coming here. We're going to add another timing track, and there's one in here called, and this works good with with when if you're able to isolate out the drums. There's one called note onset detection. All right, and we're just going to leave it. We'll start with the defaults on how it comes up, and we're going to say okay. So let me turn you off. So if you look what it did, it looked at here and it pretty much just automatically created our drum timing track for us. You know, it hit even these little parts and these big parts. There's a little something right there. Um, a little trick is, and I've got this turned on, this double. If you right click up here, you can double the height of the waveform. So sometimes it helps you hear things. But maybe we don't want to capture these little ones. So we're going to add another timing track. We'll do the same thing. We're going to do no onset. Let's just, we'll just bump this sensitivity down. Let's just try here, see what happens. And if you look, so now we've eliminated capturing these tiny little ones, but we've captured just the big ones. So it does a pretty good job when when you're getting down to something like this where you've got a really well isolated audio track to get your drum part all done, right? So now we're just it saves you time from having to manually create them. Maybe go in here and you have to touch a little thing up or two, but that works. That's another pretty good trick. And with that, I will take questions.
Any questions? No questions?
No questions. We explained it all perfectly. All right.
You did amazing. Did you show how to split? Matt says. Uh, yes, split.
We did, but we can do that again. Yeah, we did, but we can certainly. Let me just. I'm just going to get rid of these ones. It'll be easy. Delete timing track. All right, so let's just add it. We're just going to add a beats one, and then we'll split it. This is Silent Night, so let's get back to 3. All right, so let's say if we wanted to split, you can split a single one if you just right click. You can divide timings and tell it, I want to divide by 2, I want to split up into 3, I want to split up into 4 parts, whatever, right? That's one way to do it. Let me just undo that. If you want to split everything, just right click here and select timing marks. That'll select the entire, everything on that row. And then same thing, we're just going to right click. We'll split or divide timings. Now, let's say we want to divide them by 3, just because. Right, so now
Now it doesn't label the split, right? But can you label
it
the?
doesn't label the, yep, then that's where you would come back here and then you would right click auto label timings and we could do 1 through 3 and right now you're going to see this goes 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 because we split this one this bar before had 3 beats, but now we split each of those beats into 3, so now we actually have 9 little subdivisions.
Okay. The other question was, where is the paste by cell option? And it's that top little clipboard by the clock.
Yep. Yep. And here's paste by cell, and this is paste by time. So I guess a couple little things is when you paste by, let's just, actually this will be, let's, actually here's a perfect little example. So even though looks like the song started you can see, right? Even though we got our beats, you can see how these are, once we get into the main part of the song, they're definitely longer, right? So if we had, let me just put on a few on effects in here just to, right? So two different ways you can use paste by cell is one is if you click and drag, and let me pick a different, let me just make these white. It'd be easier for everybody to see here. All right, if I click, I'm gonna click here. If I click and highlight them all, okay, and I've got my beats active, right? I can copy, and then we're gonna do two things. We're gonna paste by cell first, and we'll paste by. So we got paste by cell, and I hit paste, and they fit, they match perfectly. If I hit paste by time on, and I'll come down here now, paste by time is on. I'm gonna hit paste again. You can see it kept everything the same, but it doesn't line up with these marks. So if the song got faster, even though it's got the same number of beats, it might have gotten faster or slower. The tempo changed. That doesn't pick up. So that's why typically, like I said, I virtually am always in paste by cell mode. And the other way you can do it, if you're having trouble selecting them this way, is if you turn off, all right, if I turn them off, and let's say I copy them, and I turn on beats, all right, and I come over here and I try and paste, all right, you're going to get this weird, it says graphics driver problem. Okay, it's not really a graphics driver problem. If you're getting this, it's because when you copied the effect, you did not have the timing marks on. So you got to make sure your timing marks are on and make sure only one is on, or sometimes it struggles with which one you're trying to line up with. So if I have them on and I paste by cell, and you can actually, you know, you're not limited to just one row, right? I could select all this stuff here and paste it all over here. Okay, the little caveat is that I want to say, since we're covering this, let me just delete this. Let me delete this. Okay. Did I delete too much? I did. All right. Yeah, gotta put some stuff back. All right. If you select it in this way, where you're highlighting with the grid on, and I copy, we're going to paste right here on 6.2. It will be relative to the top left corner that you picked. Okay. Where it works a little bit differently, let me undo that, is if I pick them this way with the little window and copy, same thing. Now, if I pick right here, same spot, you can see how it took this effect and actually moved it over. It's gonna paste it wherever you relative to the top effect that you picked is where it's going to go. So generally, I find you're better off selecting them, with the cells on like this and pasting. It just makes it's a little more intuitive in my mind.
How are you able to select the multiple effects while your timing track is still on?
You're just going to click. I'm just left clicking here in this little cell, and then I'm clicking. I'm keeping the mouse down or the left click down and then dragging.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not able to do that on mine. I can only lasso the effect if I turn off the timing tracks. That's why.
You get a box when you click in a cell like that,
Yeah, see, the second time, like the one you showed me, yeah, I can do that. I can't do the one where it's selected like this.
and you're holding down the mouse button while you move.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Left mouse button.
Yeah.
Do you have paste by cell on?
I'll check it out. I am just yeah, I'll have to try that again just to see because I tried
So
it
don't,
multiple times.
if you try and pick like here, if I try to pick on the effect, it won't, see, it doesn't work. It doesn't let me. So I've got to pick on something. I got to pick on, I got to
Outside.
select
Okay.
into into a blank cell to do it.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Alex West asked, did you mention that right-clicking the waveform to show different options for making a custom track?
I did not. That's actually a good point. Let me switch back to the music track because that'll make it more apparent. Yeah. So if you don't, done. All right, so let's just zoom in a little bit. Yep. So if I right click, right, this is the raw waveform, which is everything, right? So it's like he was saying, you got a bass waveform. So it just shows you the bass notes. So that, a lot of times what we're looking for when you're sequencing is these spikes or peaks. There's the treble waveform, which is the higher notes, and the alto is the mid range. And then if the song didn't, you could use this to try to strip out the vocals waveform. This song doesn't have any vocals, so I don't know if it probably doesn't look much. Looks like it just shrunk it down. And this you could um, pick it by the notes or basically from the low to the high. Um, MIDI is a way of it's I don't know what it stands for, but it's a way music can be written electronically, and each value is a certain note level, and so you could select your range down and and hit that. So yeah, certainly the waveforms can help you um, focus in on certain parts of the sound that you want to sequence to.
All right. All right.
We don't have any more questions. Who got the closest, Andy,
I
for the
saw
number of people?
40, but yeah. Well, let's just finish it. So thank you, Mark. I'm going to stop recording now and we can return to questions or anything else we have. But thanks again, Mark, and good night,
All
everyone.
right.